the work, hustle, and the actual numbers, like forget the passion I have for my community, but the numbers are supporting our community. We're bettable, bankable, and we're winning. Hi, this is Medina, founder of Equal Space, and you're listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, this is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creatives like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey, Dream Drivers. This episode is brought to you by Tinted Paradise, a new beauty company that's bringing you unique, creative, and vibrant nail polishes that are vegan, fragrance-free, paraben-free, and cruelty-free. It was started by Dream Driver Beyond Bozeman Sims after realizing the amount of toxins and fumes involved in getting her nails done. So she wanted to do something about it, and after 4 months of planning and working through kinks, Tinted Paradise was born. So if you're someone who is or who wants to be more conscious about what you're putting on your nails, I really advise you all to try Tinted Paradise polishes. And I personally love the Neon Blaze collection because I love bright colors that stand out. But you can also shop Harvest Hues, which have some really nice fall and holiday tones as well. So if you want to support a Black woman-owned business this holiday season, please go to tintedparadise.com, buy some nail polish, and then use the code DID30 for 30% off. I'm always inspired by the dope businesses that Dream Drivers are building. So let's continue to encourage, uplift, and support one another. So I'm excited for you all to hear from this week's guest, Medina, who's a creative strategist, speaker, entrepreneur, and founder of Equal Space, which is a Newark, New Jersey-based co-working shared space and incubator. Medina saw a unique need to design a space where multicultural, LGBTQA, and women-owned startups could work and build a community. So in this episode, Medina is going to share his personal dream driving journey, including navigating life post-college as a creative, because you know that can be difficult, how he hustled to get his design agency off the ground and scale that, and what eventually led him to create a safe space for entrepreneurs who are often left out of the mainstream narrative to thrive. He's going to share his major keys to success for other dream drivers, including advice on how we can make strong financial decisions, how we can build our own personal advisory council, and why being open to innovation is crucial in today's dream driving landscape. So there's a lot that we are going to cover in this episode, and I'm really excited for you all to hear Medina's story. If you enjoy this episode, please share it. I love it when you guys are posting to Instagram stories, posting on Twitter, Facebook. Continue to do that and make sure that you're tagging us as well. We can be found at Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and use the hashtag Dreams and Drive when sharing. And if you guys want to make sure that you are part of our weekly newsletter, The Keys, and getting that email that goes out once a week, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. And if you were on the newsletter last week, you would have gotten the email where I announced that I want to hear from Dream Drivers. So I'm putting together a special 4-year anniversary episode, and I want to hear from you all about your favorite episodes, how the show has impacted you, how it's impacted your own dream driving journey, your own hustles. I just would love to get feedback. If you listen to episode 100, you would have heard a mix of different stories. We had some old guests on. We had people who talked about what they're working on. And I love hearing from you, Dream Drivers. So I want to do that again for our 4-year anniversary. So please, all you have to do is just send your audio clip. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can record it right on your iPhone or your Android, wherever, and email it to Raina@dreamsanddrive.com. That's Raina@dreamsanddrive.com. I'm asking that clips are no longer than 5 minutes long. All right. I don't want to have to be editing 10, 15-minute speeches. I would love for this to be short and sweet. You share your story. So if you want to be part of our 4-year anniversary episode, just send me an audio clip, Raina@dreamsanddrive.com, and we'll take it from there. Please, no more than 5 minutes. Make sure it's either an MP3, a WAV format. Make sure that it's something I can pull the audio from, and I would really appreciate it. And if you don't know how to do that, you can even just record a video and email me the video, and I can always pull the audio from that. All right? So let's make this 4-year anniversary episode super special. And the deadline for that is December 26th. December 26th is the last call for all submissions. All right, so let's get into this conversation with Medina. What was inspiring you as a child? What was young Medina interested in? What was the dream back then?
So the dream when I was a child and what I think most inspired me was always anything visual. I was constantly drawing or writing or painting or just pretty, not introverted, but pretty introspective as a kid. So I always had for me, my imagination was the most valued thing to me as a kid. And I could just imagine different things, probably because, I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood. And so I think I would always paint a picture or look at things in a different and unique way with my imagination.
Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
And
BK.
I tell it to everybody. It's like born in Brooklyn, made in Newark. So I lived in Brooklyn for a fair part of my life. And I grew up in the White Court projects.
Okay. And then did you move to Newark later, as an adult or as a teenager?
I say Newark chose me as much as I chose it. So I've been in Newark for 11 years. So I was definitely an adult when I moved here. And Newark chose me for the work that I do. And I chose Newark because I wanted to be a part of the renaissance of a beautiful city, of a beautiful multicultural city.
So let's go back to that childhood Medina then. You said that you had a very big imagination. What were you visualizing then that you would be doing? What was the dream for you? Did you have one, I should say? I don't want to assume that you might have had one.
When I was younger, I think what I just wanted to do was anything creative. Okay. I shied away from a lot of different topics through school even because I loved to create stories and I loved to paint and I loved to draw. And so as a kid, I wanted that life, like the life that for many people of color is not pragmatic. It's I just wanted to be an artist or a creative, whether it was video or filmmaking. I did all those things as a kid. I'd have a little knocked up camera. So for me, I don't think it was so crystal clear, but I knew I wanted to do something that was creative.
Did you have a hard time when you went to Fairleigh Dickinson, right?
Sure did.
Did you have a hard time figuring out what to major in? And I say that because I think a lot of creatives, myself included, it's what do you actually go to college to study, right? There's so many options. Was that difficult for you or did you kind of know what you wanted to do?
So I think it was difficult coming to the solid truth of back to my childhood of what I wanted to do. So when I went to Fairleigh, I was actually a bio major, marine biology was going to be my major.
Wow.
And so I was definitely one of those people that I'm really glad I had a mom who was you need to pick a school that has majors because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how your life will change. And you need to have a school that has that flexibility. So shout out to my mother for being so a stickler for that. And when I was at school, I think after year one, even though I was doing solid in my core biology it just wasn't what was setting me on fire. My arts courses were what was setting me on fire. And I changed over the arts. I mean, my family had a little difficulty in the beginning digesting that I was because, I definitely came from that family that was lawyer, doctor.
Definitely, right? And are your parents immigrants? My parents are Jamaican. They're listen, we came here. We didn't come here to see you struggle, right? And my parents equate, I think, the creative fields with the struggle life. So it was hard kind of getting them to see it doesn't have to be like that.
I think everyone compounded that thought for me. As soon as they found out I went from the bio major to the fine arts, they were just oh, well, good luck. It's going to be a struggle. And my parents, are second generation. But my dad did not want us to work as hard as he had worked. My dad was a Marine and then he's a truck driver for the post office. And I found that work to be honorable and amazing work. He still does it to this day, but he wanted us to go and do work that was not hand intensive. So I think my parents did not want me to go in the fine arts field. Now they're completely behind me because it's a long track record. Mm-hmm. But everyone did that. They thought, oh, you're going to struggle. You're going to do these things. And I was determined. I already had the struggle. I had a fair amount of struggle in my early years. I was I'm not going to graduate college and be further in the struggle. I'm going to find a way to make it work.
What kind of struggle did you experience those early college years?
I think it was compounded to my social growth too. I left New York on purpose. A lot of people thought that was crazy, was to go to New Jersey and go to school when you grow up in New York. That's, one of the biggest cities in the world. I just knew I needed to get out for further evolution of myself as a person, as much as like my academic growth, my personal growth, because I am a person of color, but I'm also, a member of the LGBT community. And I just needed to have the freedom to explore my sexuality and my identity as much as I did my academics. Okay. So the struggle for me was finding a way that I wasn't trying to be what everyone else wanted me to be in high school, and really digging my feet in and finding out who I was through college. So I give Fairly a lot of credit for that, because it gave me that strong foundation academically, but I also had a diversity of freedom to kind of evolve as a person. So my struggles were like, well, now that I'm not doing X, Y, and Z to make my family happy, who am I? Like, do I enjoy politics? Because I was like, I was the president of African American club. I was president of Hispanic club. I was doing all these things, to be that dream for my family. When I got to school and I got to like kind of leave everything, I really had to ask some hard questions. So a lot of that struggle came from, what was my brand of living going to look like? And that was a hard series of questions. Like, some of the things I stepped away from, I came back to, because I realized, wait, I do love doing those things. Like, yes, I am an artist, but I also love politics. Yes, I'm a creative, but I'm also a really great businessman. And I had to discover that through school. So a lot of that hardship came from trying to really discover my identity.
And then I feel like all of us kind of have those moments of like self-reckoning, where you really have to have that deep conversation with yourself upon leaving college then. Because I think that's also another point in a lot of our lives, right? Is that, okay, in college, you're kind of coddled in a sense. You kind of have support, and then you're kind of pushed into the real world, right? What did going out into the real world post-college look like for you? How were you defining who was Medina going to be?
So that's where I think being a creative was to my betterment as a person, because your senior year in fine arts, you're spending a fair amount of time exploring who you are as an artist, what your voice is. I was also a designer. Like, I was studying graphic design at the same time as doing fine arts. And everything was about, your portfolio and the kind of work you wanted to do, and what was your voice in the arts world. And that kind of work really set me up for knowing who I was when I came out. Okay. Also leaving, like, that was the other cool thing about FDU. It had campuses in Roxton. It had campus experiences in Spain, and I'd taken advantage of the Spain experience. And so I had just done this great amount of interior work. So when I came out, I was like, yes, I want to do a corporate job, because I want to fulfill my needs and resources that I need in order to be a functioning artist. So I used graphic design at the time as my way of supporting my work as an artist. And so I came out of college swinging, because that impoverished, hey, you're going to struggle thing did not sit well with me.
Like, nah, it's not going to happen here, right?
No, I was like, nah, we've been here before. We're not doing it this time. No, let's find a way to hustle through the corporate ladder, and at the same time have my own unique voice in the art world. And that's what really my first defining year out of school really was. Like, I came out swinging.
You know what? That's really interesting that you say that, because I think a lot of people often think if they go into the corporate world, they'll, lose a sense of themselves. Did you feel like that? Or how can others do it strategically but also come out winning?
You know what? I think today I'm extremely happy for some of the fighting that we have done in order to embrace individuality in corporate America. I know a lot of entrepreneurs who are managing to keep their unique voice, and that's actually an asset to the companies that they're working for. I'm very happy to see that, because when I came out of school, that my biggest bridge was having to kind of, in order to get a job, you have to be homogenous and or blend into this corporate kind of shape and form. And that was the hardest part for me, was like pouring myself into this container of what a corporate and professional should look like, no beard, keeping yourself clean shaven. All those things were the things that were forced upon me in the beginning that I really had a problem with. And now I get to sit proudly among other professionals who are part of like the big corporations like, Prudential, JP Morgan Chase. And I'm sitting there with a full fedora and a face full of beard and have my flavor and still not have it dilute the fact that I'm a sitting professional who's worked with global brands. That is one of the wins I think I'm very happy for. The ability to wear natural hair, the ability to have my beard are things I didn't have when I first came out. So those were the struggles. The visual like paring down I had to do really kind of hurt my feelings on a daily. Now I would not do that no matter what. Like I'm a professor at Rutgers and I show up how I show up. And at my job, at my companies, we celebrate individual aesthetics. So that would be it.
But what made you want to go into entrepreneurship and say, hey, I can take all these skills that I have, all these passions and make something out of it? You know
what? I think for founders of color, sometimes it's from being sick and tired and or constantly facing obstacles where you are that you start to look at how you could carve your own path. And I think that's what entrepreneurship presents. Besides it being a wealth builder, I don't wealth shame. So I love when my people in my community are like, I'm going into entrepreneurship because I'm going to build wealth. That is perfect. I will celebrate you as much as I would that you're going in for social impact or you're going in to change the game. So for me, I was really tired being a creative director of fighting for my creatives to have flexible hours, to have compensation. Like I was working for some very large agencies and constantly having to fight for bonuses, even though I felt like the reason these deals were landed were because my creatives created the deck or pitched the idea. And I really just got tired of it. And I got tired of agencies vending out so much of the work internationally that my job as a creative director was more of a freaking project manager. Like we had,
and those two are very different.
Oh man, and they're different. They're an existence I don't care to have. Like I want to be creating whatever the campaign and whatever the look and feel of the campaign and the work for my client is. I don't want to spend time having to do time differences between Milan, Malaysia, and Ireland. Like I don't want to do those things, and that's a lot of what was happening. And so my actual friends, my friend camp, they really kitchen cabineted me and they were just like, then go start your own agency. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're not hearing no Afro-Latino dude like going out and starting agencies. And this was 11 years ago. And they were finally like, well, we're tired of you complaining and you have the skill you had. I had the ability to work with Diddy in opening the flagship store on Fifth Avenue. And they were like, you killed that deal. Why don't you just strike off on your own? And I finally was like, you know what, I'm going to. And really it was a challenge to people I had hired who said it wasn't possible. You can't do that. You can't be a man of color and think you're going to run this high-end agency and start it from scratch. And I was like, okay, well, watch me. And that's how I had the audacity to put my name on the company, on the door, and say, this company's named after me because I'm going to represent excellence and you're going to see us work. And here we are 11 years later. And we've had some really good contracts with like Pepsi and Coke and Xbox, and it's been a good ride.
So in those early days, what do you think were the key components to your success, right? Because I'm sure you probably had to do a lot of hustling in the beginning to get clients, to get contracts. But thinking back or looking back, what were the key things that you were doing in order to, number one, not only build the agency, but also make sure you were sustainable, right?
Ooh, let me tell you, thank God we have hustle culture, because you're right, that was a lot of what the first couple of years of it looked like. So the other part was also being realistic with my finances. I know that that's something that is not the funnest topic to talk about, but I, again, did not want to struggle, did not want to be able to pay my rent, did not want to be, starving, done that, been there, don't need that. And so I phased my agency. So I continued to work full time. And I started to look at building my agency and using using my entrepreneurship resources to build this agency up. And year one, I knew first 3 months, I just saying, how much am I bringing in every month? And then I'm like, well, I can't live off that for sure. So how much do I have to make? And I had to sit down with like a financial advisor who was a friend. And they were like, well, X amount of dollars per month is how much you need in order to live. And to have an emergency fund in case anything goes wrong, you need to have this much more. So your agency needs to make, if it's just you right now, you a one-man army, your agency has to make this amount of money. And so for the first year, I just kept building myself to that amount. And that really, as an entrepreneur, you guys, everybody should have that. Like, I need to make $5,000, $3,000 a month in order to pay my rent, put food on my table, take care of my travel, pay my auxiliary bills, pay my student loan. I need to make $5,000 a month. And let's say month 1 through 6, you're just making $2,500 a month. Then you're like, wait, I'm at a shortfall. I'm halfway there. And then you're like, okay, in the next 6 months, I'm going to hit that 5,000, and you have something to work towards. So that's what I kept doing. I kept using my full-time job to pay my real bills and kept busting myself to get this agency to make that amount of money per month. And then the first 3 months I made that amount of money, every deal just put money to the side. I was like, I cut 20% away from my projects. I'm like, put that in an account. And then the next 6 months, I'm like, okay, I made this X amount of money. Can I do it for another 6 months? And I started to notice, wait, 2 or 3 months, I didn't hit it by like half. So does that mean this little nest egg, 20% I put to the side is enough to take care of me? Should I have a bad month? It took me, honestly, 2 years of working full time and building my agency before I handed in my resignation.
But I think that's important that you're being truthful about that, because I think a lot of people just jump into the water. And I mean, there are people who do that and they're successful and they figure it out and they swim back to shore fine, right? But there are people who actually get drowned out there, right? So hearing this side is important, because I think there's a culture too of just jump and you'll figure it out. But sometimes you do need to make sure you do some measurements before taking the leap, right?
I mean, I agree, because that's the mentality I was growing up around. And we have to understand our story, our founder story is so much different than those of other, nationalities and worlds. They have friends and family rounds. They have parents that they can borrow money from. They have grandma and grandpa that they can borrow money from. That is not the background of people of color as founders. Like, we have a fair amount of obstacles in even getting money lent to us. Like, my agency couldn't even get a loan, so we had to hustle it on our own. My mom and dad are paying, for my brother and sister, and my grandparents are just, barely making it. We don't have a friends and family round. We have a hustle and hustle round. And so I think that has to be like, it took me 2 years. Like, please, it was not easy. And even after those 2 years, I still made some mistakes that, thank God we hustle and we know how to work around. But there were plenty of times where I was like, nervous, plenty of times when the account was looking negative. I had some of my biggest moments and still the accounts weren't where they needed to be.
It's interesting that you say that. Just this past episode 225, with Tamika Rochester of Harlem Cycle, she was talking about how when she was trying to get a loan for to open up Harlem Cycle, she said, I had good credit. I was coming from a 6-figure corporate job. I had money in savings, and the bank still would not give her a loan for her business. And she kind of said, I think it was because of my color and this audacity of me wanting to launch this thing that hadn't been done before. So sometimes there are barriers that you have no control over, right? It's like being a person of color and an entrepreneur, there are a lot of things that we're dealing with.
100%. And that's called the prejudice of lending, which there are a fair amount of studies out now that show that banks have a real solid history and track record of showing prejudice to lending to those of color. And the startup world is no different. In owning Equal Space, I have encountered these obstacles as a founder, and my other founders have encountered. So my job is now to find hacks and workarounds to allow these access points and resources to hit my founders, because I've experienced it and I refuse to keep that kind of pattern going. And either I have to expose it through digital advocacy and person advocacy, or I need to find those who are willing to bet on us and reap the rewards. Because, just talking about your last episode, that woman of color, Black women bring $51 billion in profit with less than 0.02% investment. Bet on Black women leading in travel and education. The numbers, the stats are there in favor of Black women. I will bet on a Black woman every day, because the work, hustle, and the actual numbers, like, forget the passion I have for my community, but the numbers are supporting our community. Like, we're bettable, bankable, and we're winning. So that's something that I get very passionate about, as you can tell.
No. And I think it's something that we also need to remind people of, like, do not be afraid to advocate for yourselves. I think sometimes you can start to believe what people are telling you, right? Like, let's say you had listened to people who said, hey, Medina, why are you even trying to start an agency? Who do you think you are? What if you had listened to those people? Where would you be today?
That is, those sometimes it's an inner saboteur. Sometimes it's those outside that are in your community that we've been forced to be so pragmatic, so realistic about what we can achieve, that sometimes there's a little light that's dimmed because of it. And it's from the people sometimes even around you, and friends and people who have worked for me sometimes with those people. You got to do that interior work. You have to, like, say, I dare to dream because those before me have dared dreams far bigger at times and have done it. Our people have had a history of doing a lot with a little against it all. Mm-hmm. So, like, you have to just pull from those sources of, I have to do that every day. Every day I have to be like, because to be a light bearer, you too need to find some places of light.
Where do you go to get that encouragement and that, to get that light?
I have a really beautiful small group of friends who are entrepreneurs. Some are entrepreneurs and others have been friends since day zero.
Can you define entrepreneur just for our audience, for people who may not know what that means?
So an entrepreneur is someone who's working within the corporate structure. They're not an entrepreneur outright as if they're trying to start their own business, but they're working within the insides of corporations like Twitter and Facebook and Prudential, and they're doing the work too that helps our community move forward. But they're doing it from within. They're handling billion-dollar transactions, and they're the heads of foundations. That, for me, that's a part of the ecosystem we don't want to separate ourselves from, because in the end, they can also be amazing allies in getting your work further along.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're saying that you have a support system, you have a small group. Sorry for interrupting you before.
No. So yeah, it's like a kitchen cabinet, So people that you like, you're in your kitchen, you're sitting with them at that kitchen table, and you're just telling them how you're feeling, or B, you're calling them in that moment where you need a little extra bravery and you got to borrow it from someone and give it to someone, give it back, or give it to someone else, and ripple affect it. But like that advisement pool is filled with people who are at all phases of their career, from all socioeconomic backgrounds. But that small little advisement group is what helps me stay committed to my mission of helping multicultural founders and women ventures. And they're also those people, when I have a big decision, who can gut check me, or who can say, did you look at these things that might arise that I might not have seen? And I take that seriously, because I know at the end of the day, they're betting on me winning just as much as I'm betting on them winning.
So I know some people who are listening to this might be like, I don't know how to cultivate this network, or I don't know where to start. How do you think others who are trying to build their own kitchen cabinet, their own advisory board, how can they start, building that foundation of support?
So I would say put yourselves in rooms of people who you're aspiring to move in the same alignment with. So putting yourselves in some new rooms. That's the other thing, is like sometimes these people in our lives that we want to happen are not going to be in the same rooms we keep putting ourselves in. So being uncomfortable in some rooms with people who you're looking at like, wow, they're doing this and they're doing that, is an inspiring place to be. And the next thing you know, you could find that next person. And I find that in really great places like Afro Tech, Black Tech, Culture Con. There's some great places of people who are moving in the same energy as me. And the next thing you know, you're making new friends, and you cultivate the relationship in the direction of empowering each other and supporting each other. So put yourselves in some new rooms, and I think you'll find that. And also, don't be afraid to reach out to people who might be 4 or 5 steps ahead, because I'm also finding this beautiful culture of people wanting to put other people on, of wanting to root other people and bring them into rooms. That's what I do. If I get into a new room and I have a little bit of edge on it, sometimes I'm going to say, hey, can I have an extra ticket, please? Because I am your speaker. Like I'm speaking next week at She Summit. I reached out. I'm like, can I have 2 tickets to bring in and sponsor 2 people who I think could really benefit from this experience? And a lot of other people are doing that too. So like reach out to somebody who you're like, oh, they're speaking on a panel, and be like, hey, can we go out for coffee? Hey, can I align and sit with you and chop it up for 5 minutes on a Skype call or a Google Hangout? You'd be surprised how people react.
Yep. As long as you come correct with how you approach them, right? I feel like that's where people often get it wrong. Like, don't come in my DMs and say, hey girl, be professional, and also just make sure you have your ask as well. I think a lot of people often get it wrong with how can it be mutually beneficial, right? How can it be more than you just seeming like, you want something? I think that like if you go with it if you go into it with the idea of building a relationship, you'll get so much more out of it,
Exactly. And definitely about that ask part. Sometimes if you ask where someone is extremely well placed, it's a less of a lift for them to help you along. I think that's something we got to understand. I oftentimes look at equal space being in alignment to helping people move forward. If someone is sitting on a diversity and inclusion panel and they're looking to find startups, or they're in an investment panel and they're looking for startups of color, or they're charging with themselves for finding more diverse startups, I present it in a very different way. It's not like, hey, I want you to come see my startups, we're doing this work. It's not that. Sometimes position yourself where you're strong puts you in alignment with them. So instead of saying, hey, come visit my startup, I'm like, you're saying you're looking for diversity and inclusion. 80% of the population at my share space actually are startups of color, women-led startups, and LGBT enterprises. I believe that we can further your goal by bonding together and partnering. That's a different proposition.
Dreams often are inspired by problems, like real life problems, right? Tell me what the problem was you saw and how you saw equal space solving it.
Cool. So, this makes me laugh because this was like my favorite question, because when I got invited to do my TED Talk at NJIT, it was from someone who had been a longtime supporter. And when she asked me, I said, well, TEDs are supposed to be these, empowering, inspiring moments. I was like, do you realize like I didn't start Equal Space from some rosy, cute story. That's not why I started Equal Space. And she was like, that's why I'm asking you to bring it, because I think that can have an inspiring moment for people. And so for me, Equal Space was born out of frustration from seeing so many startups of color and women-led startups kind of automatically given obstacles and barriers to access to like financial investment. And they weren't for real reasons. They were for like qualitative reasons. Or what people are saying now is subconscious bias. I hate that. No, you're just biased.
Right?
You're doing subconscious bias because you want to feel better about yourself. But this is an intentional bias against people of color because the narrative against us has been so successful. So I started Equal Space as just this small safe space that I could afford because, I am not by any stretch of the imagination some millionaire, but I knew where I was right now. I needed to do as much as I could to create a safe space that celebrated my people and gave them just a simple desk to work from in the beginning. Like when we started Equal Space, it was like, let me just give them access to internet, access to a desk, and then access to a culture and programming that helped them further along and understand the hustle of startup life.
No, you can go. You can keep going. I just had another question, but it was going to just kind of further you along a little bit.
Yeah, so that's where we started, was really addressing this pain point of not feeling welcome in other what we call co-working spaces, because Equal Space is a share space, which there's a difference. But these spaces where you walk in and you automatically feel like you have to give your credentials or you have to establish your value, that's demeaning and exhausting when you're already trying to work on your startup. And so I just wanted to create a place that when you walked in, you felt like someone was saying, welcome to Equal Space. How you doing, friend? And the next thing you know, you just felt welcomed and like you were in a part of a tribe and an energy that helped you focus on getting as good as you possibly could in that moment.
And you were already in Newark at this point, right? Because Newark is kind of, I feel like, well, describe to me why you chose to launch Equal Space in Newark.
So my work is as a creative strategist, and I then had the opportunity to work with Cory Booker, and he was one of our Equal Space, our Medina City clients. And I came to Newark after a 4-hour tour, and I moved here 20 days later. I moved my life and I moved my agency here. And the reason was it was this opportunity to be a part of rebuilding and reinvesting in a city of color. Like I was dead up, seriously wanting to be in another city of color and helping to make it an inclusive rise. I had just came from Brooklyn where the gentrification was real and our people were turned out in droves to allow others to come in and reap the benefits of investments that were made by people of color. And Newark presented that opportunity to me where I could be a part of the fabric of the city. And I'm 11 years in, and I'm proud to say that we've made some really great wins and creating equity and inclusion in the rise of the city. And there's so many more ways we have more work to do, but I'm just saying I am proud of where we've gone so far. And that's what brought me to Newark. In doing that, I was one of the few people who came into the city who had a business already. So when I came in, I took square footage, I took an office, and by hosting events and meeting with other entrepreneurs, I started to discover that they had nowhere to go to host their meetings. They didn't have access to internet. They just needed somewhere to pitch their company with respect and with their brand looking good. And I had an office. I already had like 5,000 square feet. So I just started to actually include them in my culture and say, hey, take a desk over here. We have space for you. Hey, the conference room is open. Go ahead. You can do your meeting there. And by just doing that, like being a community member, Equal Space was born organically from that because I would have never planned on owning a share space. It just kind of came out of me answering a need of my people.
So, one of the things you mentioned earlier was about people who go into entrepreneurship because they want to build wealth, right? Did you see Equal Space as being an opportunity to do that, or was it always kind of focused on the vision as well?
So when I started it, it was originally social impact. Like I just wanted a safe space for my people. As it started to evolve and grow, and we started to become kind of like rare air for entrepreneurs of color, I started saying that this really needs to be a solid model, and I need to bring the solution to other cities. And I didn't want people to get that confused with it being a social cause. It's really people of color start really amazing businesses. You can see that all over now. And I just want to be a space that fosters that and keeps them growing and happy. And so that's when Equal Space became a model that is a for-profit business, because we still do good business, but we also do socially driven business and cause work, because I don't think the two are like separate. I think they belong together if you're doing the best of your work.
How did you get your clients, or do you call them clients? How did you get people to know about the space? How did you really push the benefits of the space to the larger Newark community? Because I feel like sometimes there are so many hidden gems, right? Nobody knows about things. So how did you make sure Equal Space was on the map?
So in the beginning, it was just really social.
Okay.
Then when I came to the table like, no, I need to create a real solid business model. And I had, thank God I had some experience now, because my agency at that point was like 5 years old. So I was like, oh, I know what I have to do. So I sat and I did the work. I did the business plan work and I did the marketing work. And thank God I own an agency that does marketing and design. And we really started to dig in on who is our members, is what we call them. So if you're a part of Equal Space, you're called a spacer.
Okay.
Our spacers, who are they? What are the businesses they're looking at starting? What are their core needs? We do that still to this day. We're constantly doing one-on-one interviews with whether they're startup, inventor, entrepreneur. We're sitting with them, hearing their stories, and always where can we pivot our programming and support to help them further? And I did that. We did the listening work, and then we started to do much stronger social media work. We started to do partnerships with people in the city who could be our ambassadors. So we have really great relationships with City Hall. The mayor of Newark, Raj J. Baraka, uses our space to do his podcast every month. So he's in our space. We have podcast studios. And then we also have partnerships with the local businesses like Rising Tide Capital, Greater Newark Enterprise Corporation, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Newark Alliance, Invest Newark. We craft these amazing partnerships with not-for-profits, and then we really band together with them to do programming. So we do a lot of partnership programming with companies who want to do financial advising for entrepreneurs. And so we'll do that, or we'll partner with a company that's trying to also, one of our startups is a startup trying to make sure that Newarkers can own in the cities they live in through mortgage programs. So we'll do a program that's free to the community to come and experience that and learn how to improve their financial history and how to own. So by doing active programming and really pulling on our partners to spread our message, we've been able to grow and have 2 campuses and to have really great members of the community.
I love that you mentioned that because I know a lot of our dream drivers, so that's what I call my audience, dream drivers, right? A lot of us are, it's the scaling, right? It's having these good ideas, these good missions, these good visions, and then figuring out how do you get people to the well to drink. A lot of us are often nervous about that or aren't seeing results and we're wondering what's going wrong. But I love that you mentioned partnerships and being strategic about programming. Could you possibly give us a real life hack? How did you score a partnership? Like, what's the step to getting a partnership to actually work?
So first is being really candid with expectations. I think partnerships go awry when there's unsaid expectations. We're really clear. So in one partnership that we have with Greater Newark Enterprise Corporation, they're a micro funder. So they lend funding out to startups and small businesses. And we have a wealth of members who are in need of seed capital. So our expectation in the partnership was, of course, to financially coach them so that they can take out a large amount, but also to do small seed competitions so that we can grow even those who are in the earliest stages of ideation for their startups. So we outlined a partnership where we're like, yes, we will, funnel and find applicants who can qualify right off the bat. But what we need is a commitment and partnership to do educational programming for free, and then to also do seed capital where we can, do a competition where at the end of it, you're going to get $1,000 seed capital free and clear to build your business. We're going to help you get, applicants, but also we need you to help our startups grow. We put that in writing. We, sat in multiple meetings. We were able to talk about performance expectations and what happens if we miss a performance expectation. What if it's like you want 10 members and we only bring you 5? Do we do an improvement plan together? Do we do an evaluation? Do we sit in meetings to quarterly help each other move this forward? Those are the things I think partnerships need to clearly outline. Performance expectations, what you need, what they need, how this is going to be successful, and how you're going to jointly check in with each other to make sure that you're hitting those success marks by supporting each other.
And you're not doing this alone, right? You're not a one-person team or one-man team anymore, right?
No, not I tell people that all the time. While I am proud to be a founder, really what makes Equal Space the phenomenal thing it is as a share space is the team. So no, we're a team of 5. Both founders still do work every day. I still do work with Equal Space every day. And then we have an amazing CEO. We are Black women led. And Akozia Aim is our CEO. And then we have our community manager, Kelly. Kelly's sole work as the community manager is to check in with our members, but also help us keep our programming vibrant and on target with the needs of our members and our community. And then we have an operations manager, which is Jonathan Collins, and he does all of our work. And Raphael Roman is our COO.
Where do you think your spacers are finding success as entrepreneurs, right? Like, what are the things that you think they're doing right that are helping them expand and really execute on their missions?
They're doing the hard work of looking at the financial model.
Okay.
I think that the startup myth is that, everybody's going to have this scenario where they're going to go in and the idea is so good that the investor is not going to care about the return on investment right off the bat. And that's just not the truth. Like, investors want their money. And so for me, I love that our startups are really focusing in on their customer, validating that customer base in fact needs their service, and then looking at the financial model of how that business is going to grow and how it's going to be sustainable and for profit if that is the intention.
And, I think that's often, I'll talk personally. I know for me, even with building Dreams and Drive, figuring out the revenue stream, figuring out just how this is going to be profitable has often been like the hardest part. It's easy to have a vision, right? It's easy to kind of be able to do the things that are sexy, the branding. For me, networking, building relationships, that's not the problem, but it is the financial stuff that is always kind of like, oh, someone help me, right? And I think especially being a woman of color, I don't want to be seen as a failure, right? And sometimes I feel like, am I doing something wrong because I can't figure out how to actually make this profitable? Or sometimes, you know what it is too, Medina? I sometimes feel bad about charging for things. how would you suggest I work around that? Because I think it's something that I know a lot of my women of color entrepreneurs, we struggle with.
So I too struggle with that. My team holds me responsible about that. I refuse to give into the mentality that this is not a company that should charge for its services, because we need those resources in order to do better work and more impact in our city of Newark, or in the long-term vision, which is in 5 cities across the country. We're not an urban myth where people of color are not wealth building and not, having businesses that are gaining traction. So we should charge. But what we can build in and not be ashamed of in charging, you're setting pride and setting the effort and understanding that it takes X amount of dollars plus as profit for your business to grow and provide the right caliber of service. So we need to really understand and validate the price of Equal Space, that $30 for the day pass, is really valued at and in service to honoring what quality of experience we want to provide to our spacers. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing, is like constantly repeating, it takes this much to do it. It takes this much to grow. This is what the price is. It is justified. And then the other side is being comfortable with giving as well, because in giving you can receive. So we do have a free space Tuesday at our share space where all you have to do is register. And for the Tuesday we've picked that month, you can come in and work. We do events and programs and speaking fireside chats for free. Actually, 80% of the programming at Equal Space is free. So we do that in service to our community to let them know this is the value. That's why certain things have charges to them. And if we do have an event that's $50, it's because that's what it takes to produce the event. And that's what it takes at the end of the day to get the speakers that we have in the room into the room. So you have to show that value to your community, but you can give at the same time. And you have to be methodical and careful in how you give, because you don't want to give to the point where you're breaking yourself. You want to give within the means that you currently are and commit to yourself that you will give more when you're at a bigger capacity yourself.
Do you ever feel like giving up along this journey?
Ooh, yes. Yes. There are hard days. I'm faced with the realities of what it is. I own one of the few share spaces that are actually owned 100% by a person of color, an LGBT male, an Afro-Latino. I'm one of the top 25 in the country that provides safe space for Black founders, brown founders, and women. So there's a lot of investors and a lot of companies out there who don't understand why this space is important. And so I do feel sometimes low energy and like, damn, I have to fight today. I got to fight tomorrow. I have to keep fighting. And so I do get worn down, and I do feel there are days when I'm like, Equal Space is a lot. I call it the biggest project of my life right now, because I am the sword and shield for an entire community that's going to change the world tomorrow. But today I'm tired, and I'm grateful to have on those days. Like I think the creator or the universe responds, and something uplifting will happen where I'm like, oh, that's why I'm doing this. Or I'll go, nope, this is why I'm doing this. Or I'll go to my kitchen cabinet and they'll be like, no, this is why you're doing this. You can feel down right now, but dust it off and get back to it, because this fight is bigger than you. And so, yeah, that's why I have all those things in place, is because there are days when I'm like, wow, we do Tech Week here in Newark. It was 6 days, 16 events. Halfway through, we're like, my team and I are exhausted, but we have to go to these points of inspiration to keep going.
So what's next for Equal Space? What's next for you, Medina?
This moment is actually a big moment for me, because I have been really comfortable being behind the scenes, and working with someone like, shout out always to Tequila White, who is an amazing PR professional, stepping in front of the camera, stepping in front of podcasts and having these conversations for me is a big challenge, because I always thought I was better behind the scenes, but we can't afford to be on the sidelines. We all have to step up and do our work and be vocal and advocate for each other. So this moment is a big moment for me professionally. For Equal Space, Akosia, my CEO, and I are working on creating 5 equal spaces across the country to create more safe space for founders of color. So that's the big obsessive dream that gets me up every day right now is like, how can I make more equal spaces in, the tale of two cities? How can we be in Black LA? How can we be in the Wynwood district in Miami? How can we be in Tulsa, Oklahoma? Places that need us and be solving through innovation, entrepreneurship, and tech. That's what I see.
Well, I'm wishing you the best of success in all those endeavors. And listen, you have such a story and you're such a dynamic speaker. So I know that once you start putting your story out there more, it's really going to be, people are going to love to hear it. So just continue to do it.
Oh, Raina, thank you so much. And thank you for this amazing platform. Dreams and Drive is just like, I am an avid fan, and I'm so happy that we were able to talk, and I can't wait to further and put everybody onto this amazing platform. Because this is now for me a new place to turn to when I need inspiration and I need to hear new authentic stories.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was just talking to my coach earlier. I think sometimes we don't often think about how powerful just hearing how somebody else did it, how much of an impact that can have, or how much of encouragement that can be to just keep going. And so that's why I continue to do it. Because there's days where, kind of like you said, you're like, why am I doing this, right? And I'll get while we were talking, I just got a LinkedIn message from someone, right? And it's like, wow, you never know who's being inspired by your story or what you're doing. I say that to myself all the time.
Well, I mean, you're that place now. So I'm really saluting you and celebrating you and thanking you for this moment to talk.
Thank you. So let's go into our lightning round, Medina. So basically we're going to do the gear shifts in the car, right? So when you hear it, I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind and kind of equate it with your own dream driving journey. Okay?
Perfect.
Park.
Red.
Reverse.
Backwards.
Neutral.
No movement.
Drive.
Making ground.
All right. Okay. And if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success. So Medina, can you tell me 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road?
Perfect. First thing, a really great source of financial wisdom and or a financial advisor. That is the one thing that I think, in order for us to move forward, we have to understand our economic power. Mm-hmm. 2, build your kitchen cabinet. I don't care if it's just one person. Not your mama. Build an advisement section, and that can help support you through those times. And 3, be open to innovation. Like that's my constant go-to is like, if this is not the norm of how things are done, then there's an opportunity to do it in a new way. And you're that opportunity. So those are the 3 things I have. I have financial advisement, I have my cabinet, and I have this constant need to innovate within a given space. And I think those are my three things.
So last thing, where can our dream drivers find you or Equal Space online if they want to connect or they want to learn more about how they can check out this shared space?
So you can always find me at City Medina on all platforms. That's CITIMEDINA. And then you can find Equal Space at Equal Space Co. on Twitter, Equal Space Co. on Instagram, and then it's Space Equal on Facebook. And my team and I are constantly on our socials, so please, feel free to reach out to us if you have a need or if you want to come on by and take a tour. But you can find us on equalspace.co, and you can always find me at citymedina.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Medina.
No, thank you, Raina, and have a great day, and thank you for this.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 230 with Medina. I hope you enjoyed hearing his dream driving journey as well as his keys to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you are sharing it with your community. Share it on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, email it, text it. Just make sure that you are spreading the knowledge and encouraging somebody else to put their own dreams into drive as Medina did. And as you heard from him share his story on this episode. If you want to make sure you're getting our weekly newsletter, The Keys, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join to sign up. And please make sure that you are subscribed wherever you're listening. I would love for you to get notifications every time we have a new episode. So hit that subscribe button. And for those who are subscribed and who are listening to us specifically on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and review. Those reviews mean a lot. And as I promise every week, I want to read our latest reviews from Dream Drivers. This one one is coming from A Rich Life, Alicia Richard. And she says, amazing, great podcast filled with so much valuable information. Thank you so much. Keep them coming. Thank you, Alicia, for listening. And then we have another one. It says episode 229. We got 5 stars. It's coming from TK 2019-29. Dope podcast. Definitely a lot of gems. I love hearing your podcast. Thank you so much. And I love that you are listening to the show. TK, if you guys want to hear your review, please just leave one on the platform. It really helps other people who want to find shows and want to see what people are saying. So your reviews do matter, okay? And don't forget about this week's sponsor, Tinted Paradise. If you're looking for nail polishes that are vegan, fragrance-free, paraben-free, cruelty-free, Black woman-owned, check out Tinted Paradise. You can use the code DID30 for 30% off your purchase. That's DID30 for 30% off your purchase. Let's support other dream drivers. Brianne is a new entrepreneur. She had this vision. She had this desire to make the nail polish application process less toxic. She's someone who's creative and committed to other creatives and celebrating and encouraging us to be unique and to express ourselves through color. All right. So go to tintedparadise.com. That's tintedparadise.com and use the code DID30 to get 30% off your purchase. As always, guys, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again. All right. We'll chat again. And our next guest is going to be the fabulous Itasha Jordan. Bye, guys.